Welcome to Community Church Unitarian Universalist. I'm your worship associate, Sally Jackson, and it is a joy to be with you today. Community Church is a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. We welcome all who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning. Ours is a faith in action as we do the work of social justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every being. Please look to your weekly email for announcements. And we're delighted to welcome Reverend Jacqueline Luck to our pulpit today. The bio for Reverend Luck doesn't have to be very long because we know her so well. She is a retired Unitarian minister who joined our congregation, and we haven't let her really retire. So we're glad to have her speaking again today. Okay, let's see. We're going to do our land acknowledgement. You can follow along in the back of the program. So, we acknowledge and pay tribute to the original inhabitants of this land, the city of New Orleans. It's a continuation of an indigenous trade route on the Mississippi River, known for thousands of years as Balancha. We recognize that as a result of broken treaties and involuntary removals, Native Americans were often forced from their lands. We remember and pay respect to the communities impacted by these actions. Native peoples have lived on this land since time immemorial, and the resilient voices of Native Americans remain an inseparable part of our local culture. With gratitude and honor, we acknowledge the indigenous nations that have lived and continue to thrive here. Now it's time for opening words given to us by Reverend Luck.
So I would like you to repeat, if I give you the nod, all are welcome.
All are welcome.
Okay, here we go. From our separate joys and struggles, we come here this morning to find the peace of balance, to find the blessing of restlessness. All are welcome. To follow, to lead, to teach, to learn. All are welcome. To join in the dance, to catch our breath.
All are welcome.
To give generously, to receive gratefully.
All are welcome.
If we are steady and composed, if we feel completely lost, if we don't know what we are feeling, this community has a place for us. Here we matter, and here we are loved. If you are steady and poised, if you feel completely lost, if you don't know what you feel, this community has a place for us. No matter, we are loved.
All are welcome.
It is our custom to light a chalice, invoking hope and eternal truth to our worship. Please join us in singing the words of the chalice lighting. We light this flame. The words are printed in your order of service.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to be a teacher today, so y'all better be good. Okay, so I guess y'all probably noticed the type of shoe behind me.
Yes.
This is one of mine that I brought from Africa. Every time I travel, I like to do the art, buy something of the artwork or the craft that's indigenous to the country. And of course, I went nuts with fabric. In Africa, this is one of many I bought. But this one is a very special piece. This is an Adinkra cloth. And if you notice, there are a bunch of symbols on this, signs and symbols on this. And everything on here, how it's woven, how it is, this is a traditional way of making cloth, okay? This is, of course, like I said, the Adinkra. The Adinkra translates as a name that sends a message. The Adin, A-D-I-N, means name, and the Kra, K-R-A, means send a message, send a greeting, farewell, or goodbye. And that last two, the farewell and goodbye, this is also known as a mourning cloth. So I thought it was appropriate for what's going on in the world today. The Adinkra symbols were originally created by the Bono people of Guyana. King Nana Kwadwo Ayameng Adinkra of the Guyana originally created and designed these symbols and named it after himself, the Adinkra. The Adinkra symbols were later adapted by the Akans of the Ashanti Kingdom after the Nana Kwadwo. And the Adinkra, because they had captured Adinkra himself, and so they just took it as their own. The Adinkra symbol expresses various themes, proverbs, concepts, aphorisms that relate to the history and belief of the Kan people from the Ashanti Kingdom. Each symbol has a proverbial meaning that sends a message and serves as a guidance to the people. People would create patterns using different kinds of symbols to relay messages. Communication is very important for the African peoples, especially visually. These patterns are printed on white cotton cloth, usually using carved calabash stamps and vegetable dye, base dye. And we went to the largest Adinkra workshop there, and they actually boiled down the bark of this tree. It's called the Riabi tree. And they grind it up, and then they put it and they bake it, they cook it over these cauldrons for a long time, and the ink is unbelievable. It's very thick, and it's waterproof. Yeah, and they crush, it's pretty cool. We went and we did the things like that. Traditionally, the Adinkra were made for and only worn by royalty, spiritual leaders, for funerals, and other very special occasions. Nowadays, the Adinkra can be used by everyone and for a variety of things such as special occasions, pottery, decorations, spirituality, guidance, logos, etc., based on the meaning and the purpose. So, let me show you the ones that are, as I was doing research on this one, this is a pretty good one here, the symbology on here. So I'm going to point them out to you. Yay! Okay. Can you hear me? I'll come back to it. So this one I'm going to talk about. You see it's repeated here. Okay. So this is the Akuben. It's the war horn. And it's for vigilance and wariness. And the second one, of course, those are the ceremonial swords, okay? And that's called the Akofena, and it's the sword of war, which means courage and valor. This next one, kind of checkerboard looking symbol. This is the ketipa. It is a good bed, and it means good marriage. So this is actually a bedspread. Can you imagine sleeping all over that warmness? Okay, so. Oh, and the most important one here that you will see a lot of. And I really love this symbol because of the significance of it. Does anyone know that one? It's the Sankofa bird. It's, well, there's alternative versions, but the one I like is, it's the bird looking back. So this is about, you can't go forward without looking what your ancestors are, who's behind you, right? You go forward by looking at the past. So that's a really strong piece here. The one I haven't figured out though, more research, is the big one. So I have to figure that one out. I can't find it on my thing, so, but it's the most prominent one of it. But also the way, is this a strip cloth? So in this case, the strip goes this way. There's strips about this wide, about 4, and they're horizontally. So it's not one piece of it, it's strip woven. Each piece is woven, right? And then it is stitched together to make the whole piece. So the strips are going horizontly, okay? And another thing I have, you notice my fabulous necklace?
Oh, yes.
This is another thing. These, well, they were trade beads, but these are not just trade beads. These are royal beads. And these are very important in that only given to, you know, special people. So anyway, yes, when I came walking in with it, you know, everybody looked at me like, ooh. So yes, so anyways, but these were not traded, these are for royalty. So that you can, and they're very significant. So these were traded, these are monetary things in there. So if you have any other questions, I have plenty of other fabrics, but this is one of my favorite because of the craft into it. And I also made one, I forgot to bring it, but I made my little stamps and everything when I was there. But oh, and why do this? One more last thing. There's one here that's different. Does anybody see it?
The Ankh?
The Ankh.
Yes, indeed.
That's why I bought it, because it's not traditional to the Adinkra, right? So this is a modern adaptation. So they're starting to use it more and more, the symbol in the African. What does the Ankh mean, young lady?
Is it everlasting life or the hereafter?
It's just life itself, you know. The pharaoh or the gods would hold it as an offering, right? To give life, you know, to take life. Because, you know, to the Egyptians, the life is afterlife too. So that's what the pharaohs would hold, right? Okay, very exciting, isn't it?
Yes.
It's not just a piece of cloth. Okay, so do we have, oh, we do have one. So please join me in singing the children out to Ari.
This is the sacred time of joys and sorrows. If you're online, you may write your joys and sorrows in the comments section to be read aloud. In person, you may write them on one of the cards being passed out by our greeters. or feel free to come up to the microphone and share your joys or sorrows. Please remain seated as we sing hymn number 145, As Tranquil Streams. One from Jim and Vera. It says, the joy of gathering yesterday with other UUs in Baton Rouge. My eyesight is going. All right. And this is from Michelle. Liz Trotter's back procedure has been postponed due to insurance company shenanigans. Please keep her in your thoughts. Reverend Jane is doing well following her hip replacement surgery. And it's great to see Kathy doing so well after her hip surgery. A joy for those who attended the revival at Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge yesterday. And from Kathy, the joy that the technology for hip replacements exists, and for the first person who allowed a doctor to do the surgery on them. I took no chances. It's just tight. It's from Jerry Driscoll. Last weekend, my wife, younger daughter, and I traveled to Boston to visit my two brothers. My younger brother and his wife are doing fine. My older brother has the onset of Alzheimer's and is struggling. His wife is dealing with it with the help of a health aide. The health aide is very good at assisting my brother and a real benefit to his wife. We visited with their son and daughter and their families. I think my brother really appreciated the family visit, as did his wife. It is hard for me to see him in this condition, and very hard for his wife and family to see him like this. He was very smart, an MIT graduate, and accomplished. Now he is a very different person. I don't know how long he'll be able to stay in his own house, but his time is limited. So I left with mixed emotions. I see him almost weekly in our family Zoom calls, and his participation is very limited. It was good to see him and his family and my younger brother in person. So that goes as joy and sorrow. Any others? Yes.
I know many of you have been to my house many times and have seen the ironwork in front of my house. That's kind of typical of the ironwork that you see all around New Orleans. But I think what you don't know is that there are African symbols in that ironwork. And one of the symbols, it's very much like these symbols, and one of the symbols means learn from the past. And one of the other symbols means, wait, learn from the past. And the other symbol is, now I can't think of what it means. Anyway, if you come to my, next time you come to my house, ask me and I'll show you the symbols.
It's indeed been a joy to have our daughter Kathy here for the last week.
Well, I'm going to mention one more sorrow. Some of you may remember Robin Goulet, hard to pronounce her last name. That's why I just call her Robin. She and her mom used to come here. Well, her mother has passed away from Alzheimer's, and the funeral is going to be coming up very shortly. But just want to keep her, and she's not doing very well because she is now alone in this area. So keep her in your thoughts. And now we light 2 more candles. One for the joy still bubbling up, too new to share, and one for the sorrows that cannot yet be put into words. Know that we hold you in our hearts. Thank you, Bill. Now, we have our invitation to the offering. This is where we remind you the community church, Unitarian Universalist, is a self-sustaining congregation. Members and friends' generosity help us to do the sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to our community and beyond. You can give online at ccunola.org/stewardship or by text at 504-370-2659. Text GIVE. And you can give in person this morning. That won't offend any of us. It's our custom to give 50% of our plate to a cause our congregation and its social justice ministry support. Today we are supporting the Alliance for Affordable Energy. Almost said energy, so used to that. They're our power outage people. Since 1985, AAE has been working to ensure equitable, affordable, and environmentally responsible energy policy for all Louisiana energy consumers. We are Louisiana's only dedicated watchdog working to protect consumer rights at the Louisiana Public Service Commission and New Orleans City Council. Most states have organizations like ours that are supported by state-allocated funds. We do not receive any funding from the city or state and rely on our members, corporate sponsors, and foundations to keep our lights on. So remember that. And you may remain seated when you sing our offertory hymn, number 104, When Israel Was in Egypt's Land.
reading from Kathleen Norris. She's an author that maybe some of you have read. She's was a nun, actually, and had a change of heart, of theology, and has worked her way through various different traditions. And I find her very interesting. And she has now written books on Islam and Mohammed. I actually was part of an interfaith group in Tennessee, and the Muslims in that congregation, in that group, actually considered that her book was so accurate that she must be going to convert to Islam. So she's very well studied with what she writes and what she does. But this is an earlier writing in which she writes about church. Church is other people, a worshiping community. The worship or praise of God does not take place only when people gather on Sunday morning, but when they gather to paint the house of an elderly shut-in, when they visit someone in the hospital or console the bereaved, when Sunday school kids sing Christmas carols at the nursing home. If a church has life, its programs are not just activities, but worship. And this is helpful because when the Sunday morning service falls flat, as it can do, it is the other forms of worship that sustain us. I have only to look around at the other people in the pews to remind me that we are engaged in something important, something that transcends our feeble attempts at worship, let alone my Sunday morning crankiness, end quote. Our hymn is Be That Guide, number 124. Before the merger, and he created a congregation in San Francisco, which I think it's called Beloved Community Unitarian, but I'm not positive, but it's still in existence, it's still going well. He was a friend of Martin Luther King's, we have his photo back there, and just very influential. He met with the Dalai Lama, and anyway. So, this meditation of the heart that he has written for us is what I'm basing my sermon on today. In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of God, my heart whispers, Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempest, in the days when darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. Why do we come to church? Various reasons, I'm sure. But perhaps because in church we are engaged in something that transcends, something that is more than the sum of its parts, more than a building, more than the congregation, more than each of us. Church is engaged in something more. Some name that moreness God, divine mystery, Holy Spirit, or Spirit of love, beloved community, justice-making, even truth and beauty in their highest senses. What is ultimate in our lives shapes our high resolves. In the 1950s, a humanist Unitarian congregation, now the UU Church of Rockford, Illinois, put it this way: this is a liberal church. We seek to make religion as intelligent as science, as appealing as art, as vital as the day's work, as intimate as home, and as inspiring as love. We believe in the moral purpose of life and the emerging brotherhood, I think today we might say, the relatedness of all humankind. We stand for tolerance, reason, liberty, individual and community responsibility, and the ethics of Jesus. We believe in the quest for truth, the path of love, the goal of character, the life of service, and the inspiring fellowship of this church. Their high resolves for their church call to us even today. The quest for truth, the path of love, the goal of character. My goodness, how long has it been since my ears have heard the word character? The life of service and the inspiring fellowship of the church, tolerance, reason, liberty, responsibility, and the ethics of Jesus. Liberal churches embrace science and questioning of faith and a reliance on personal seeking and experience to determine our belief. Something called freedom of conscience, freedom to decide for yourselves, freedom to listen to the minister and decide whether you agree with that person or not. People come to liberal churches like Community Unitarian Universalist Church because, writes A. Powell Davies, they are hungry for a religion that makes sense, that does no violence to the spirit, and yet calls for courage rather than solace.
Amen.
He goes on to explain, thank you, Carol, religion is not something separate and apart from ordinary life, as Kathleen Norris told us. It is life. Life of every kind, viewed from the standpoint of meaning and purpose. Life lived in the full awareness of its human quality and spiritual significance. Now, this ability to think for oneself, to write and to verbally defend liberal religious thought go hand in hand. And you'll agree that few UU ministers could make their way in UU congregations relying only on the authority of the Bible, at least today. Unitarian Universalists expect educated ministers. Their seminary education gives them a certain authority to speak, recognizing they have studied religion and congregational life for years. We, as UUs, are at this moment losing our 2 remaining seminaries, Starr King School for the Ministry and Meadville Lombard School in Chicago. There are too few UUs today, or too few of us that have the money to support these seminaries. And our denomination is struggling as we are, as all congregations are, not just Unitarian Universalists in the U.S. right now. So what do prospective UU ministers do for an education? They will be attending Unitarian Universalist seminars, mostly as online students. Or they will attend seminaries of other denominations that have gigantic endowments, and other seminaries of other liberal or progressive denominations, and then take UU-specific courses online. Luckily, I was able to choose an on-site education at Starr King in Berkeley, part of the Graduate Theological Union, because it was possible then. And as it turned out, I learned tremendously from interaction among students and made lifelong friends and colleagues. And you know, that's actually pretty important for us to have these connections, because we get off in our congregations and we're not supposed to be best buds with everybody. We're supposed to cry on other people's shoulders. And it's lovely to have colleagues that understand what we're talking about and that we can share with and be friends with. Seminaries are expensive, and students accrue debt above college degrees. I graduated 20 years ago from seminary with a student debt of $60,000 after 3 years of seminary and a 4th as an intern in our Memphis church. We can only imagine how the debt is now incurred has changed. UU ministerial education is a 3.5 to 4 year educational commitment above a bachelor's degree, usually. After receiving a Master's of Divinity, a prospective minister affiliates with a faith tradition. A candidate for UU credentialing, that's the affiliation, must go before the Ministerial Fellowshipping Committee, the infamous MFC, to be accredited as a possible Unitarian Universalist minister. A newly minted minister is required also to have mentors while on the path to final fellowship. Ordination is the next step in this journey, and it can only be done by a UU congregation, as CCUU ordained Stacy Mitchell, and the Church of the River ordained me, entitling us to the honorific Reverend in the recognition of our calling. An ordination is permanent, but accreditation or affiliation with a denomination can be removed. Unitarian Universalist congregations ordain ministers, and that keeps the final authority in the hands of the congregation. You get to decide. A UU-affiliated minister can serve without ordination, as I did in Mississippi for a few months, and as Reverend Stacy did here. Interestingly, UU congregations can contract with a minister credentialed or affiliated with another denomination, often Methodist or Quaker. possibly disillusioned Progressive Baptists, because they are very familiar with our congregational polity. Interesting that we have the same polity as the Baptist churches do. The process for them to become UU affiliated ministers, however, is arduous, but some choose to jump all of those hoops, and some serve UUs without accreditation from the MLC. They are ordained, but they're not accredited from the MLC. Ministers can be called by a congregation, meaning they will stay with that congregation as long as both the congregation and the ministers desire it. Reverend Jim Vanderbilt was a called minister of Community Church. Calling a minister is desirable as it offers both the congregation and the minister's family a whole lot more stability than a contract would. Recently, there has been an uptick, though, in contractual ministry for smaller congregations with fewer resources. Remember, I am not on the board, but it seems to me that for a few years, contract ministry is the only feasible option for this church. And we may need to hesitate until our financial situation is clearer. We shouldn't contract with a minister with a hope and a prayer. It's not feasible or ethical. Contract ministry has its own unique issues, as we've discovered. It takes a certain minister to do a contract ministry because there is little stability for them, especially in moving their family members for possibly a year or two, just only a year or two. Jobs and schools are involved. Some may agree to traveling between the two, but obviously it's a strain on all. New Orleans is an expensive place to live. I don't need to tell you that, with high insurance, and some pay school tuitions. CCUU's last two ministers were already local, if you remember, and we were very fortunate to find them agreeable to sharing our ministry. We did not do a national search of other ministers, nor did we offer them the stability of a calling. That they decided to move to something else more stable should not be a surprise. You would do the same. Perhaps a local minister is a future possibility. That would solve a lot of problems. A local minister of another tradition or a retired minister who has had a change of personal theology from another denomination I'm talking here might also be a choice for Community Church as a contract minister. Some congregations are resorting to part-time ministry until they can get their houses in order before contracting with a minister for full-time. However, ministry is far from only a sermon every Sunday. And your efforts will be needed in this time of transition. You need to help pick up the slack by caring for each other, in growing and leading this congregation, and showing up to welcome speakers and newcomers, and in supporting our justice ministry. I'm so thrilled today to see older members who have returned and newer members, new visitors here as well. We've had a lot of visitors these last months, and so I think our outlook is very good. Your participation, though, is going to be needed if we care about the future of liberal religion in New Orleans. I began describing the debt ministers incur while in seminary. They're expected to manage that debt in a healthy manner. Some denominations, the Episcopalians I remember in particular, are my friends that were Episcopalian seminarians, the church paid their way all the way through, no debt. But that doesn't happen for us as a rule. Occasionally I'll meet a UU who happen to have a very wealthy sponsor that paid for their education, which is lovely. Ministers may come in midlife and they deserve credit for earlier experience. It is common in progressive schools, businesses, and churches to recognize earlier life experience. I'm sure you will agree that as any other profession, ministers should receive pay increases and cost of living increases. Our treatment of church employees and staff should align with our high resolves for justice. We want healthy ministers who take care of themselves. No sacrificial lambs, please. We have standards, and as employers, we choose to uphold our high resolves. It is time for us within this congregation to look our financial situation in the face and do something about it. What is clear is that this is no one's fault, but some changes need to be made. In short, we've been counting on others to pay our bills. As we do this transitioning, we need to work smart, taking care not to burn ourselves out. We need to hold to our high resolves in being a beloved community. Of course, we want more members, but not to expand our budget. That's stinky thinking. We want new members because we want to fulfill our purpose in New Orleans, to be effective. I so believe in this faith. You know I do. And its healing possibilities. How can we do less? There are many unchurched today, and there are those feeling misused or abused by their former churches, especially so right now. They need to know about the possibilities within liberal religion and our Unitarian Universalist congregation. Let's not keep it a secret. Find ways to talk about your church. I know we're timid about that, but I think it's such an important thing, and we're offering people healing. In looking for a narrative about a congregation facing loss and being in transition, both with and without a leader, I am turning to the Bible this morning, the Old Testament, a great resource for insight into humankind's ageless struggles. Israel was in Egypt's land, as we sang, in bondage, as slaves to the pharaohs. Moses led the Israelites out of bondage, and those following him formed a congregation of sorts. They wander in the wilderness a long time, and the congregation grows weary of the journey. They expect to find the land of milk and honey, maybe in a few weeks, maybe a month, but to wander in the wilderness, seemingly lost for 40 years. But the sun gets hotter, no water, no food. At least there was food and water in bondage. Pharaoh fed them, they remember. Surely things should be better by now. They begin to talk behind each other's backs. They email and text today, we'd say, with accusations and complaints, It's always the leadership's fault, isn't it? We know that. Anxiety builds. The congregation begins to slip back into the good old ways of being. The good old bad ways of being are comfortable in their familiarity. And so they begin smelting metals and creating golden calves to worship false gods. But soon the golden calves are destroyed for the glittering illusions that they are. The congregation struggles with their anxieties and their fears, including Moses. Even he wonders, why didn't Yahweh help him get his beloved congregation to the promised land more quickly? Why did they have to wander so? People were doubting him, talking about him. Possibly they wandered for 40 years in the wilderness, I think, because it took them that long to forget their old ways of doing things. They had to learn new ways for a new day. They couldn't go on living as if they were in Egypt, expecting to be fed, because that was no longer the reality. The old way isn't working anymore. They have a vision of life that is impossible for them in Egypt. They know there is more they are called to do, and so they leave. And after they learn newer ways in their time of transitioning, they understand they can approach life more creatively than counting on someone else to provide for them. They begin to see possibilities for themselves. Moses' congregation makes it to the promised land, but without him, he only glimpses it from the mountaintop. This narrative is a cautionary tale as we begin our journey of transition about what a congregation must avoid. They must keep their high resolves before them. The future of any congregation opens up once it recognizes that the old ways may keep it from remaining vital and robust, not only for its membership, but within the community at large. An old way is resisting change to be more welcoming of newcomers, perhaps moving past Eurocentric ideas to be more inclusive of all. That's why I love Cynthia's textiles so much. Releasing our hold on sacred cows. An old way is to reap benefit from the church, but not support it financially or with our presence or with our volunteerism. An old way is to talk among ourselves, passing on hearsay, not cognizant of how destructive it is to the health of the entire congregation. Dare I say, I'm weary of people leaving churches, not just this one, years of churches, because of something said or knowing just a partial truth, because they disagree with leadership. Poor old Moses. An old way is to enjoy each other, but inadvertently creating a system of insiders and outsiders. An old way of being would be to pride ourselves on our differences rather than learning to couch our belief in a universal theological language. An old way is not being transparent in the workings of the church, to deny the keys, so to speak, to all members. An old way is using a directory list or the numbers you have on your phone from long ago, therefore leaving out new members and visitors when you're choosing to communicate with friends. A new way many have not embraced yet, according to what our office administrator tells me, but could open the doors of inclusion, is using breeze It's Community Church's online directory. It's up to date. We add new members all the time and their information. Also, you can check in the Friends section for people that you're looking for that maybe haven't kept their membership active. You, members, can contact Charlotte, our office administrator, and they've begun putting the contact information on the order of service right back here, office or church administrator. And you can contact her and she'll send you something, I don't remember, the password or something to get in, and then you establish your own account. It's really very easy once you get it going, and it's so handy. You can just look anybody on your phone anytime you want to. These are only a few things we can do that will create a larger vision. We can do that together. Vitality lies in that larger vision. As Howard Thurman writes, keep us unto our high resolves. We, too, believe in the quest for truth, the path of love, the goal of character, the life of service, and the inspiring fellowship of the church. This is a strong and resilient congregation, as you have proven over and again. You will make it to the promised land if all of us commit to do it together. May it be so.
Amen.
Amen.
I'm going to read a benediction for us, and then we're going to sing hymn number 146. I chose that just recently in recognition of the world situation, or the situation in the Middle East right now. This is a Israeli or Jewish hymn with an eye to the Middle East and also to the Ukraine. And so I thought it was very pertinent. It's not necessarily goes along with the sermon, but it's very pertinent to our lives today. So the benediction, it's in the back of your hymnal if you know it isn't, I'm sorry. What's that? We do. All right, I'll let Sally extinguish the chalice real quickly.
We extinguish the chalice here, that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again.
So for benediction, I chose the words of Boris Novak, and they've been translated. Between two words, choose the quieter one. Between word and silence, choose listening. Between two books, choose the dustier one. Between the earth and the sky, choose a bird. Between two animals, choose the one who needs you most. Between two children, choose them both. Between the lesser and bigger evil, choose neither. Between hope and despair, choose hope. It will be harder to bear. Let us sing together number 146. Soon the day will arrive. And then let's all go to have some refreshments in the fellowship hall. Okay.
Amen.
potluck vegetarian luncheon today, so you might want to go over there.